This is a short tour of the Postgres Plus Cloud Database console running on the HP Compute Cloud. When you first get to the console, you will need to register a new user. Enter your name, password, email address, and company name, and pick a cloud provider. We're picking the HP Compute Cloud provider here. Along with your personal information, you will also need to enter your tenant name, access key ID, and secret key. Once you've completed registration, you can then log into the console. Once you've logged in, the first page you will see is the dashboard pane of the console. From here, you can start a cluster, see resources that are in use, see service status information, and see tutorials. We'll start our first cluster. Enter a cluster name, and for our engine version, we'll pick the Postgres Plus Advanced Server. We'll start with one node in our cluster, and keep the default username and password. In step 2, you can choose how many backups you would like to keep and when you would like the backups to happen. We can now go to the Clusters tab to watch the cluster as it's being started. From this tab, you can open the Events panel for more information as the cluster is coming up. While the cluster is coming up, we can see the Backups tab where backups are listed after they've been created. From here, you can restore from a backup and delete a backup that's no longer needed. You can also view the Users tab, which lets you change your personal information and download the SSH key you would need to log into one of your instances. Now the master node for our cluster has started. By selecting the cluster, we can view monitoring information, change the configuration options, and view the details for this cluster. From the Details panel, we can see the IP address of the master node and the load balancing port. Using this port allows failover to happen from the master to any replicas. We can also enable and alter the auto-scaling threshold that brings up a read replica when it is needed. On the left, we have options to start a new cluster, scale up the chosen one, scale down this cluster, back up the cluster, clone the cluster, and terminate it when it is no longer needed. We'll now add one replica to our existing master node. As long as an application is talking to the load balancing port of the master node, read requests can be sent to replicas, spreading the requests across the cluster. I'll pause the video while the replica is brought online and joins the cluster. We can now see the IP address and other information of the master and the replica nodes. Finally, we can terminate a cluster if it is no longer needed. You can see the termination steps as well as the creation steps in the Events pane. This has been a short demonstration of the features of the Postgres Plus Cloud Database running on the HP Compute Cloud.